Now available on Kindle, E-Steam No Good Deed. The Devilish Diva scares some stick-up kids straight in this action-packed E-Steam series comic. Get E-Steam No Good Deed on Kindle for 99 cents today.
Before you hire a comic artist to work on your crowdfunded comic, independent comic, or illustrate something like a book cover, you need to know several tips in order to have a successful business relationship. Now, I have worked with comic artists like Bill Walko on the ISIS and E-Steam series covers since 2014, and I have worked with artists like Mike Williams on the John Haynes series covers since 2018. And I've also worked with other artists such as Josh Howard and Drew Swift on comic projects, and I've also worked with Bill Walko on the E-Steam No Good Deed strip. So I have been working with comic artists for about 8 years on different projects, and over the course of those 8 years, I have learned some things about before you go out here to hire a comic artist in order to have a successful business relationship with them. Now, when it comes down to hiring a comic artist, the first thing you want to do is do your research. So when doing your research, you want to do two things. One, you want to take a look at the background of the artist to see how many years of experience they have, and you also want to take a look at their portfolio. And an artist who does not have a portfolio should be suspect to you, because if an artist is looking for work in the comic medium, then they should have a portfolio of their work online. And you want to be able to see two things in that portfolio. One, you want to see art that conveys a cover image, and you also want to see sequential images, because comics are a visual medium, and you want to see if this individual can tell a story in the single image for a cover, and you want to see if they can go out here and tell a story in a sequential fashion from panel to panel. So that's the first part of your research that you want to do before you hire a comic artist, is you want to do a research into their background, and you want to do a research and take a look at their portfolio. And really solid, consistent comic artists, they are going to have a portfolio on three places. One, they're going to have a portfolio of their work on their official website, and two, they're going to have a portfolio of their work on a platform like DeviantArt. Now, a third place you will find their work will be in Google Images, because you can just type in their name. Like, for example, you put in Bill Walko art or Josh Howard art or Mike Williams art, and all of a sudden you're going to see a whole host of images that are associated with them popping up, and you're going to see either commissions, covers, or comic panels, and this is going to show you a catalog of their work and how they have and what they have produced in the past. So when you type in their name in Google, that's going to give up a whole host of images, but you really want to see their other work on DeviantArt or an official site, because the official site is one thing that is important, because it shows that this artist is in business, and they are in the business of producing content for publishers and commercial enterprise. So that's going to let you know that this artist is available for work and they are ready to take on a project. So that's the next thing that you want to do is, again, do that research into their portfolio and take a look at all of their different pieces of commissions, covers, and comic pages, because that's going to give you a sense of whether this artist's style is a good fit for you. And that's the next thing you have to do after doing your research, is you have to try to figure out if this artist's style is a good fit for your characters. And that's a very important part of any comic project that you take on, is trying to figure out if an artist's style is going to work with your story, because you don't want to go out here and hire an artist whose style does not complement your characters or complement your story. For example, when I was doing the Isis Wrath of the Cyber Goddess cover concept, I contacted Bill Walko because I thought his style would really fit my characters, and I thought he could really convey a strong story with his animated style, because I wanted a bit of an animated style for the story and the characters of Isis, and I wanted to create something that was family friendly and all ages friendly. And when I was doing the John Haynes series, I wanted to hire Mike Williams because the John Haynes character is a bit of a darker character, a bit of a grittier character, and that style fit well for that character and that story. And for the John Haynes, the Man with Nothing to Lose variant, I wanted to hire Josh Howard because I really liked his art, and two, he has worked on different styles of comics, but I liked a lot of the comics he has done that were more of the horror related and the superhero related, and his style really, I thought, would fit John Haynes very well. So when I go out here and I hire an artist, again, I'm looking at that artist's style to see if it's going to fit well with the characters, because I want to be able to tell a very strong story, like what I did with the E-Steam No Good Deed strip. Bill Walko told a very strong story in his images, and it just really popped and was really compelling and came to life. So you really want to make sure that the artist's style fits your characters, and you don't want to go out here and hire the wrong artist, because the wrong artist can practically destroy any sort of connection your readers have with the characters. For example, if you're doing a very cartoony and comedy style story, and you don't want to go out here and hire a gritty style artist to work on very cartoony kinds of characters, because that gritty style is not going to really convey the humor very well. But you want to go out here and hire a kind of gritty type of artist for a darker story, because they're going to be able to convey a compelling story in that style. So you really want to assess whether this artist's style really fits the characters and really fits the tone of your story. Now, after you have gone out here and really assessed the style of this artist and imagined what it would look like if they drew it, then you have to start taking a critical look at your budget. The reason why you want to take a critical look at your budget is because making comics is not something that you can do on the cheap, and you really do not want to go out here pinching pennies when it comes down to hiring an artist, because a comics book artist work is the first thing that the reader sees, and it is the thing that is going to leave the greatest impression on the reader. So you don't want to go out here skimping on the art, paying a low rate, because you will oftentimes get what you pay for, and if you get what you pay for, it may not be of any sort of quality, and if you don't leave a strong impression on the reader, that may cost you pledges in a crowdfunding project, or it may cost you sales if you're deciding to publish this project on an independent platform and have it sold on at retailers like Amazon.com. So you really don't want to go out here and hire an artist who has a low rate, because oftentimes if you hire an artist with a low rate, sometimes their art isn't of quality, especially if you have not taken a minute to really take a critical examination of their pages. Because if you don't really take that critical examination of their pages to see how their story works, you're really going to wind up losing money in the long run. So you really, again, want to take a look at that art, but you also want to take a look at your budget because, again, if you have a project out here and it's like 40 pages, it can really add up as related to cost. So you really want to count the cost before you go out here and contact the artist and make sure that your budget is in place for two things. One, you want to have a budget for your cover because your cover is going to be a different rate than the pages, and you want to be able to make sure that your budget for your cover is taken care of, and you also want to make sure your budget for your interior pages is taken care of because both of them are two separate rates as related to an artist. An artist will have a page rate as related to interior pages, and they'll also have a rate for covers. Now, your rate for pages, usually for the interior, it ranges anywhere from $75 all the way up to $200 a page, depending on the artist. So you really have to think about the budget that you're going to have as related to those interior pages, because if you have a longer script, it can possibly add up. And you also want to think about the budget for your cover because you want to have a very strong cover for your book because this is going to be the first thing the reader sees, and this is going to be the thing that leaves a powerful first impression on them. And your cover rates can vary anywhere from your $175, $180 for a cover to all the way up to $300, $400 for a cover for a top tier comic artist. So it really varies, but you really have to think about the cost as related to covers and interiors because, again, these costs can add up. Now, when you have people out here, they will sometimes try to contact maybe 2 or 3 artists because they want to do variant covers, and variant covers are a good way to help with a crowdfunding project because they can actually draw people in to get to know your characters and make them want to go out here and possibly buy a second book. But as I see it, the first thing you want to do on a comic project is really make sure that you get the same artist who does the interiors to do the covers, because what you want to do to start your comic project is keep everything consistent, because the reader, you want to leave a strong first impression on them so that you can wind up spreading word of mouth. So one of the things I like to do if I'm doing comics is I want to make sure that the same artist who did the cover is doing the interiors on the main book so that the reader can have a satisfying reading experience. So I really want to make sure that the reader is happy all the way through the book. So I would make sure that the standard edition always had the same artist who did the interiors doing the cover, and the reader can say, okay, I'm reading this and it's all going to be the same. Now, if you want to do variant covers, you really want to make sure that the art is of high quality, and you want to make sure that the interior is of equally high quality, because I have bought a lot of comics on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and I've been deeply disappointed because sometimes the guy will go out here and he'll put a great cover on a book, but then what will happen is he'll have these really bad interiors. And I've also seen this done at Marvel, Image, Dynamite, and many DC comics, where they'll put this great cover on the book by this top tier artist, but then I'll look at the interiors and they'll be absolutely garbage. And you really don't want to do that, because again, this is your only time to leave a good impression on the reader, and you really want to make sure that your reader is getting the same experience that they got on the cover in the book. And that's going to, again, lead to people feeling satisfied about your product and wanting to tell their friends about it. And then after they tell their friends, then want to go out here and either support your crowdfunded comic or want to go out here and buy more of your comics. Now, after you have assessed the cost of your comic and set up your budget for how much you're going to spend on this comic, that's when you want to go out here and make your inquiry of an artist. Now, a lot of these comic artists out here, they have their official websites, they have their email on those official websites, or you can find them on social media. But I usually like to contact an artist through their official website email, and usually I will send them a email with a bit of a professional tone, letting them know that I like their work, and then I will ask them what their page rates are for a cover, or I'll ask them what are their rates for an interior page. And after I do that, make that one inquiry, I just leave them alone. And then if they get back to me, then I find out what their price is, and that's when I will start to talk to them about what the project is and what I'm looking for. Usually, once I get a response and it's a positive one, that's when we can start working on our business relationship. So once I get that response, that's something that lets me know if I want to work with this individual. And one of the things I look for in the business relationship is communication. If I'm getting quick and rapid emails, or I'm getting, text from Facebook, from messaging or Twitter, that's a positive sign, because it shows me that this artist is really enthusiastic about my work, and it shows me that they're very professional. And communication is very important for your comic project, because if you're getting good communication, that means that you're going to have a very good experience with this artist. So I really like getting good communication from an artist, because that means that we're going to be able to get this project completed sooner rather than later. And usually a professional artist wants to go out here and get this work done, because one, this is going to lead to a credit for them, and two, they have something else to put in their portfolio to share as related to professional projects that will get them more jobs. So most professional artists, they want to be able to get more jobs with their portfolio. And if you can go out here and be able to create a project for them that pays them, one, and gives them credit to get more work, two, that is beneficial to them. Now, after I see that communication is very good, then I start to negotiate a deal for the project. And usually I don't try to lowball artists as related to their price per page or a price per cover, because I know that a lot of artists, this is primarily how some guys make their living, and I know that there's a lot of labor involved. So some guys will go out here and they'll be like, they try to negotiate a better deal per page rate, but usually I just try to accept what they're offering as a page rate, because again, I know that a comic artist has bills, and I know that there's a lot of labor involved, and I also know that supplies cost money, whether it be your Bristol boards for the pages or ink for the pages, or if they're working on a digital medium, you have things like electric bills. So if an artist quotes me a rate, I usually trust that rate, and I usually don't try to lowball or negotiate, a cheaper deal, because I know that the price is the price, and I try to respect an artist's price for a project, because this is just how the business is. And if I don't like the price, then I just can't work with that artist. That's just how it is, because I understand that artists have fixed costs, and that's another thing people have to understand about hiring a comic artist, is you have to respect their price for their pages, and you have to respect the price for their labor, because again, artists, they are working hard all the time, and for them to come and take some time on your project, you need to show that artist some respect for working on your project by agreeing to whatever price they present. Now, after I work out the price with an artist, that's when I then either go two ways. Now, some artists, they will be eager to work with me on a project right away, and then others, they are going to ask for a payment, either paid in full or they're going to ask for a partial payment depending on the size of the project. Now, this depends again on how your relationship is with that artist, but you usually have to pay the artist either a partial payment or you have to pay them in full before they start work. And usually the best way to do that is through PayPal, because with PayPal you do have some sort of buyer protection. So if you're going to go out here and work with a comic artist, I recommend you use the PayPal, because that's going to give you some sort of protection if the project winds up into a snag and you don't get any pages back to you. Now, usually after you've negotiated your deal and you've gotten your plan together, usually again you start to set your deadline. And your deadline is something that is the timeline that the artist is going to send you the final project pages. And that's something that you really want to be able to set a hard deadline on. So after you have agreed to go out here and hire this artist for your project, you really want to make sure you set your deadline in stone, and you really want to make sure you get your pages back by that deadline. And again, it varies from artist to artist on payment, but usually you want to make sure you have that deadline, because that's where you're going to be able to know what you're going to get. And usually when I'm working on a project, usually I like to have my deadlines for the art usually 90 days before I have to launch a book. Like in the case of Easting No Good Deed, I asked for those pages in, I think it was July or August, for a December release. And that's what you want to do, because in addition to having the pages, you're going to need to hire other laborers after you get the pages, like your letterers, your colorists, and your flatters. And you're going to need to have those pages before you go out here and hire any of those people. So you really want to make sure that you set a deadline that's usually 90 to 180 days before you decide to launch anything. And you want to make sure that that you're going to get that art 90 to 180 days before you even launch any sort of Indiegogo or Kickstarter. So when you go out here and you ask for an artist to work with you, get ready to work a very long time, and get ready to have lots of patience, because when I ask an artist to do a cover, usually I ask them to do it again 90 to 180 days before I go out here and publish the book. And I want to have again that art in hand so that I can do things like advance solicit and advance promote on platforms like YouTube, and advance promote on platforms like Facebook and other platforms like my blog, Sean James Black Freelance Writer, to let people know that the project is coming. So you really want to make sure that you set a deadline that's at least 90 to 180 days before you launch your project, because that window is going to give you, the artist, an opportunity to get the work done, and it's going to give you some time to work out the remaining logistics for the project. Now, after you have worked out your agreement with the artist, what you want to do is start working on your package of PDFs. Now, your package of PDFs is going to contain two things. One, it is going to contain the script for your story, and the second thing it's going to contain is model sheets of the characters. Now, the script for the story, that is something that's going to give the artist a blueprint of how you want the story told, and it varies from writer to writer how they want to do it. Now, some writers like to use a lot of camera angles in their pages, and others just want to go out here and just tell their story. Now, some writers want to use the camera angles because they want to be able to get some specific shots as related to the action, whereas other writers, like myself, prefer to just write the action similar to a screenplay because we want to give the artist a little bit of space to tell the story, because some artists, they feel like it's confining to work with camera angles like wide shot, medium shot, tight shot. They feel a little confined by it, and sometimes an artist can come up with a better shot than I can, and that's why I use a bit more of an open style, because sometimes an artist can come up with a better visual for a scene than what I would present, and if I were to put all these different shots in the script. So the script is something that really, again, gives that artist a blueprint to work with, whereas you have a script that sometimes it gives you a very detailed picture of the action, whereas some writers like to give the artist a lot of space to be able to tell their story. Now, in addition to the script, which tells the story, you also want to have your model sheets. Now, your model sheets are visual descriptions of the character, and it also has notes as related to characterization. So when you have a model sheet of a character, it gives the artist an idea of what the character is supposed to look like. For example, on the E-Steam model sheet, I have a picture of the E-Steam character, but I also have a picture of actress Sally Richardson, who has inspired the E-Steam character. And usually what I like artists to do is put a little bit of Sally's look into the E-Steam character and a little bit of her likeness into the character design, so that the character can look a little like her but still be herself. And that's one of the notes I put into that character as related to her model sheet. And I'll also put other notes as related to the character and have them there so that the artist can know how to draw facial expressions or different emotions, things like that, or things are like mannerisms. Like, for example, I'm getting ready to do a project called John Haynes at Death's Door, and for that project I have a villain called Thanatos, and for that character I wanted to have a bit of a goth theme with this character. So I wanted to do this whole Greek goth god, and I wanted him to have this black toga with purple trim, and I wanted him to wear these New Rock styled sandals that look similar, that were inspired by New Rock boots, and I wanted him to have a spike belt and things like that. So those are all aspects of the character that are visual as related to the character, but then as related to mannerisms, I would put a note in the mannerism saying, I want him to be very melodramatic, I want his movements to be very melodramatic, and I want his facial expressions to be very melodramatic. And I would also make references to other characters as I'm related to the model sheet, talking about inspirations like the Marilyn Manson Riddler from the Batman. I would put all of that in there because that gives the artist a richer picture of the character and gives them an opportunity to tell a far more compelling story than just putting a basic model sheet up there. Now, combined, the script and the model sheets are going to give the comic artist a sense of the character, and they're going to give them a sense of the story you're trying to tell with that character. So when you have a model sheet for a character, you're going to have a visual that helps the artist tell the story, and then you're going to have the story, which are going to give the artist a sense of a character's personality, a sense of a character's voice, and a sense of how they move and behave. And all these things are going to lead to a strong visual experience for the reader, and they're going to allow the artist to tell a far more compelling story than what they would if you just gave them basic things. So you really want to have a good model sheet, series of model sheets, and you really want to go out here and have a really solid script. And you want to make sure that when you're doing your model sheets, they are high resolution JPEGs, because you want to make sure that every detail that you present is presented there. And you also want to make sure that when you're hiring an artist, one of the other things you want to look for is somebody who can stay on model. That's something that is very important for a creator like myself. I mean, you want to make sure that your creator, your artist that you hire, really respects the model for the character, and they don't go out here and divert into different directions. Now, I've had some artists kind of ask if they want to change certain things as related to the design, and that's not something that I believe should be that negotiable. Now, certain things as related to style or cosmetics, I would allow here and there, but to radically change a design of a character is a no-no. I mean, if this person were to work for Marvel or DC, they would not allow you to go out here and radically change their character designs. So you should not allow somebody to radically change your designs, because again, you are the project manager and you're paying for this project, and as a creator they need to respect whatever designs you present to them. So yes, the artist is going to do some things in their style, and they may take a few liberties possibly here and there, but they're not allowed to really radically change your design, because again, you are paying for this project. So that's something you really have to look out for with certain artists out here, and you have to really let them know where the boundary is. I mean, for a little minor thing here and there, I would again allow that to go, because that's interpretation. But to radically change a costume or radically change a character's look, that's something that I believe is unacceptable, because again, you are the customer and they are the client. And again, it's all about respect for the guy who is again paying for the pages. You really want to show respect to that creator by showing that, okay, I'm going to try to keep this as on model as possible. Now, if there's something that's unworkable, like a visual design that if you didn't really put something there that's really can be conveyed in a comic style, then what the artist usually does is email you and let you know, okay, this body proportion is a little off. This strap is not going to fall right if I draw it as related to the human body. And you can work things out that way if you have good communication. So this is something that, as I see it, is a major area that some artists, they like to try to mess with, but it's something that you should not really allow, and that is messing with your initial design and your initial concept, because things have to stay on model. Because if you're doing an Indiegogo or a Kickstarter, you really want to leave that strong first impression on the reader, and they want to see characters that stay on model from book to book, because that's what's going to keep people's eyes caught up in the character, and that's what's going to make the character recognizable. Now, after you've made your negotiations, worked your deal out, and sent the artist your script, and you sent them your pages, and you set your deadline, then what you want to have is a lot of patience. Patience is something you're going to need when you're working with an artist, and you really want to have patience because they need time to work on your project, and they need space to work on your project. One of the things I like to do when I'm working with an artist is I will give them the model sheets, I will give them the script if possible, or the storyboard for the cover, and I just leave that artist alone. I mean, I just say, okay, he's got everything, and even if I've paid him, he's got everything, and I'm just going to give him a reasonable time to get this done. So I give artists a lot of space and just let them go and do their thing. I try to trust them to do their thing. And a lot of first time guys, they're really insecure. So they'll go out here and they'll keep emailing somebody or keep contacting them. And that's a no-no as I see it, because what you want to do is give people space and time to get work done. If there's something they need, they will send you an email or they'll send you a message on Facebook or Twitter. And I've had that happen with some artists. They would send me something saying, hey, how does this fall as related to a costume like Isis's kilt? Or they'll ask me, something about John Haynes's green shirt, or what are the proportions on this character, and I'll show them different things like for example, the Isis, the main event, I showed Bill some things about wrestling, about steel chairs, and we got that done as related to the chair in the main event cover. And these are different things that artists we would talk about as related to covers, and it's all part of the communication. And you really want to give people space to let them do what they're doing, and then you have other projects that you're working on. Usually what I'm doing is, when I'm working on covers, it's usually next to the final stage, and I'm usually working on final edits, or I'm taking on another book project. But usually I like to give artists lots of space to get things done, and I usually like to wait till the deadline, because usually that's when I may possibly contact people. But usually a lot of artists, what they will do is get to me before the deadline, and usually they get to me before the deadline. They have got the sketch pages done, and that's usually what the first thing I usually get are the sketch pages. And that's something that's, again, a sign of good communication if you're getting sketch pages, because the sketch pages let you know where he is on the story and where he is on the concept. Usually when I go to an artist and they are sending me sketch pages, I'll take a look at the sketch pages, see where they are as related to the page. And if things are going good, usually like when I'm looking at Bill's work on sketches for Isis, Wrath, or Revenge of the Cyber Goddess, or many of the E-Steam covers, usually he gets it, dead on in the first sketch. And usually from there, we can just go on to the inking and the colors on a cover, or we can go on to the page as related to the page. So usually you're going to get a sketch cover first, or a sketch concept first, from an artist in an email. And usually once you get that sketch, it usually gives you a sense of, hey, this is on point, this is exactly what I want. And that's when you want to start talking about the issues as related to panels and scenes and things like that, because that's when you want to get stuff done. I mean, that's all part of the communication. If a scene is using the wrong shot in a page, you really want to start talking about it then. You really don't want to wait until they get to the final parts of the page, when they've done all the line work and stuff like that. You really want to wait till the sketch part and get that out first. And again, that's all part of the communication. You guys, while you're giving them space, they are going to take time and come back to you with concepts of pages and sketches of pages, and that's going to give you a sense of where things are going. And you really want to look those pages over critically when you get the sketch pages, because you don't want to send something out final and it's not really what you want. So you really want to look at that page in a sketch first, and then you work things out, and then you go on to the inking stage of the page. And then after you've gone to the inking stage of the page, usually what happens is the artist will send you a TIFF file of that page. And after you get the TIFF files of the page, that's when the project is just on its way to being over. Because after you've gotten the TIFF files of the page, that's when the project is complete. And that's when sometimes you'll work with an artist and you'll pay them, and that's when because they'll send you a low-res TIFF first, or a low-res JPEG first with lines in it and stuff like that. And usually once that's good, then you're going to pay the artist, and you definitely want to pay the artist and pay them promptly, because that's how you show respect for an artist. You show respect by making sure that you have their money on hand, because this artist has worked for a month or so, or 2 months or so, on your project. And the way you show the greatest respect to an artist is by making sure they are getting their money on time. I mean, one of the things that I find that's very unprofessional is to say have this guy do all this work and then not pay them. And one of the things I try to do is make sure that that artist is paid and paid in full right as soon as the project is completed, or we're on the way to a partial completed. Make sure that their money is right there. I usually have separate budgets to make sure that their money is taken care of, and their money is not something I'm going to touch. It's just going to be there for them, and they're going to get paid in full. So that's something that you really want to do, because that's going to build your reputation as a publisher, is making sure your comic artists are paid and paid on time. Because one of the worst things people have done to a comic artist is go out here, get them to do this labor, and then what they do is they don't want to pay them on time. And that's a real insult, because this person has worked for a month, 2 months on this project, and they should be able to get paid after the work is finished, because this is about showing respect, and it's also about building your own professional reputation and building your own brand. You want to go out here and leave a strong first impression on many of the comic pros out here, because they have a word of mouth. And one of the things that you don't want to do is create a bad word of mouth by saying, hey, this guy doesn't pay on time, this guy pays partial, but then he never finishes paying. You want to make sure that you pay the artist in full, because then other people are going to look at you and say, hey, this SJS Direct, they pay on time, they pay in full. I definitely want to work with them on a project. And if this guy comes to me and he makes an inquiry of me, I want to go out here and get hired, because this guy I'm guaranteed to get a payday at the end of the project or during the project. And I really want to make sure that I get my pages to this guy, because this is the SJS Direct. They're going to make sure that I'm taken care of, and that's going to lead to me building my reputation and building my brand. Now, there are some cases where you'll contact an artist and they'll blow you off, but then you just have to charge that to the game. You really don't want to work with people who don't want to work with you, and you really just want to work with those who are passionate about your project and really want to be there on your project. So when you hire an artist, you have to understand there's a whole process behind it. You can't go into it based on emotion. You can't go into it based on feeling, because yes, you may feel a certain way about an artist, but you want to make sure that your business is taken care of, because this is a business transaction, and you want to make sure everything is as professional as possible, because you are asking somebody to work on your characters and work on your intellectual property, and you want to be able to have something at the end of that process that is valuable to you and something that will be an asset to your publication and an asset to your publication brand. So you really have to think from a business perspective before you go out here and hire a comic artist, and you really have to think critically before you go out here and hire comic artists to work on your projects. Now, I've been working with comic artists for the past 8 years, and while I've had some issues with some artists and I had really good transactions with others, it's something that you have to come into really with a good business mind, and you have to come into it with a level head. You can't really come into it with emotion. Because a lot of times some people come in here, they want to love an artist, but they don't understand that this is, again, a product that you're creating, and you want to be able to create a quality product, and you also want to create a quality product that creates a reputation for yourself and also creates a positive experience for all of your readers. So you really want to think critically before you go out here and hire a comic artist. because if you hire the right artist, it can lead to a powerful first impression that can take your project to the next level. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this about comics and the comic book industry, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to try my first SJS Direct comic by Bill Walko, Esteem No Good Deed, you can find that comic on Amazon.com for 99 cents. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Taking Care of Business. The man who rules the world breaks in a brand new partner to help him take care of business in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, Taking Care of Business at paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere.